obviously, for once, we're talking about something completely other than that we've been dealing with the last couple of days. But unfortunately, it's yet another act of violence. Caroline Leavitt came out and said that this was an act of violence directed at the Mormon church, directed at Mormons. Do you have any other information regarding this or potential motive here?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of speculation kind of revolved around the shooter here on specifically on how their what their intent was. Obviously, I don't think you drive a car into an LDS church and unload and start throwing out, IEDs if you don't have some kind of hatred for Mormons. So I think it's safe to say that exists. But what exactly was the motive? Was there people that he had interacted with? His politics. I know there's been some speculation. Remember, in Michigan, you don't have partisan voter registration, so it's a little bit more difficult to determine who a person is based off of their registration. There have been some suggestions based off of some kind of loosely posted pictures that he had some kind of axe to grind against Republicans or Trump. We just don't really know that quite yet. I think it's far more likely that religion played a factor in this, given that was the target here.
Yeah, and I'm actually seeing, so the Detroit Free Press has an article up saying that that a Burton City Council candidate said that he spoke to the man. I guess he had knocked on his door about a week prior. So they were out canvassing, and somebody knocked on his door potentially to either get a ballot for him or for one of the ongoing elections, and that he actually went on this suspect here went on a tirade against the LDS Church, described Mormons as, quote, the Antichrist. The man was outgoing, polite, and extremely friendly, and it was his animosity towards the church didn't seem violent, but it was very much the standard anti-LDS talking points that you'd find, that you'd find online. He said this wasn't something that I would forget. And again, didn't say anything specific, but that's the latest as of an hour ago. They found someone apparently who, Tyler, as you just said, they don't have the registration, or at least the partisan registration, but we are in election time, and certainly something about canvassing, and this is something that was, those are the types of things, by the way, in canvassing that you would probably want to mark down in a special notes section.
Right. And it's really important to point out, so the LDS Church is not huge in Michigan. There's probably a lot more threats against other religions within the state of Michigan. The members of the LDS Church only make up about 1% of Michiganders. So it's not like this is a huge, quote unquote, problem that exists. Is just all this animosity. It seems like that this guy, based off that interaction that he had with the city council candidate, just had some kind of weird obsession with that, and that's why it even came up in that conversation potentially with that city council candidate. Maybe that gentleman believing that it was a bigger issue than was there, but this kind of spurred a lot of different conversations, because obviously we know Charlie was assassinated in Utah. There's been some kind of anti-Mormon rhetoric that's come out in the weeks from that were around that, even though the individual that was responsible was not seemingly religious at all. We'll get to know that shooter a little bit more deeply, but obviously Utah being the home of the LDS Church. And then you also had this week, the president of the LDS Church passed away, which is kind of a big deal within LDS culture. So you have this really odd convergence of things happening where there's just a lot of, forefront in the mind of the Mormon faith. Tomorrow, we actually are hosting an event, a Turning Point, on campus at Utah State University, which was where Charlie was supposed to have his second Utah stop in his original tour. So that's happening tomorrow, where we'll be interviewing a number of individuals who were present and involved around the assassination, meaning, the individuals who were, uh, you know, part and parcel to the news, including the governor and Jason Chaffetz, who he was there with his family at the time at Utah Valley University. So it should be really interesting, an interesting conversation, especially given the news of Michigan, and then also the bigger news of the LDS president passing away this last week.
And I think there's, if anything, because I know a lot of people are trying to draw some kind of line between these horrific acts of violence that we've all seen. I've called it Bloody September. You know, it started with an attack on a Catholic church, then
Yep.
a series of other attempts, then obviously Charlie's assassination, now an attack on a Mormon church, the LDS church, which they, because it's so badly burned, we don't even know exactly how many fatalities there were, if others. Tyler, I think it's something to be said that obviously, Antifa is one thing, and that obviously exists separate to the broader issue of violence. There's lots of people who unfortunately commit violence, but I do think that there's something out there, something of a copycat effect out there, that when people see this on the news, that if you are, and studies have borne this out, that if you are someone who's sort of on that line, if you're someone who's got TBI or any other potential PTSD that that is left untreated, or it's not treated well, seeing these things in the news does tend to kind of push them over. And I think if anyone's looking for a bigger connection, I kind of feel like that might be it.
Yeah, I think it's you're bringing up an interesting point that we're in kind of a dark period here. You referred to this month as Bloody September. It looks like we're entering an era, unfortunately, that violence is becoming thematic across the country, and we know that this is what happens: is that violence begets violence. Is that people that see this, that are interested in attention in the sickest way possible, act on some of these thoughts that they've had in their head, and in particular in communities where they think it's okay. And this is why it's so important for our civilization to be able to embrace, the godliness that we need to embrace, which has, been one of the positives that's come out of Charlie's assassination, rather, is that we've had many people turn their hearts towards God and want to be better people. But unfortunately, where that light is cast, sometimes there's darkness that comes in with really evil people trying to thwart it. And so, regardless of what the motive is here with this in Michigan, it's without a doubt pure evil that is driving some of these forces, and we're going to probably see more of it as the battle wages on between good and evil in America.
No, I think that's right. I mean, the very first thing that I tweeted out was that this is demonic. And, as Christians, look, guys, I'm more than happy to have the various debates, and gosh, we've had them on the show so many times. It's like we've got Catholics, we've got Mormons, we've got evangelicals, but at the end of we've had them with Charlie so many times. But at the end of the day, when we're all under attack, we're all under attack. And that's what it comes down to. This is demonic influence. There's no question about that. Demons are writhing in pain when people gather together to worship Christ Jesus. That's the end of it. And it almost feels like when the switch is flipped, that you're going to see, unfortunately, more and more of this.